to spend the next 50, 60 minutes or so to join our wonderful guest speaker today. Some of you will know Eric Simpson. Eric has been a speaker at some site care events in the past, and Eric is a health and fitness coach and runs his own very successful business. And he's been advising me with lots of great ideas for small business owners, and we were just chatting about perhaps doing some future webinars. But today's webinar is all about your health, fitness and well-being. The excellent title, Rise Like a Phoenix Post-COVID-19. This is all about getting some practical ideas how you can boost your energy levels and how you can look at keeping yourself slim and trim as we get through this very unprecedented times. So if you would like to ask any questions and you want to get those questions down while you're thinking about them, please use your question and answer at the bottom of your screen. And Eric will pick these up. He might pick them up during the discussion, or he might pick them up at the end. And if you want to chat amongst yourselves and make any comments, please use the chat function, and we'll keep an eye on those and make sure anything that comes up is put to Eric. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you across to Eric for his talk today, Rise Like a Phoenix Post-COVID-19. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, John, for that warm introduction. And hi to all of you site care members. And all I'd like to say, first of all, it's rather unfortunate that I should be meeting you under these sort of circumstances that we all find ourselves in. But hey, today we're going to keep things pretty upbeat and positive, and it's my hope you'll take away some good practical information that you can start to apply pretty much immediately. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen, and hopefully you'll all see when I share this. This goes to the beginning, slideshow. So you should all now see, do you want to be a Phoenix post-COVID-19? So I'm hoping you can all see that. John, give me an indication if there's any issues at all as I go through this. I do want to make sure I'm broadcasting live to people. Okay, so first things first then, if you do have any questions at all, then I would suggest maybe keep those until the end. But if you've got a real pressing question, then do feel free to go ahead and ask, and I'll do my best to pick that question up as we go through. So let's just get into what I'll be covering in today's session. So how to set your Northern Star. That's effectively the guiding light that you need to set to guide yourself out of the current situation you may find yourself in if your health and wellness is not as good as it could be. And then I'll be talking about how to keep moving towards your Northern Star, because it's one thing to set that Northern Star, it's something entirely different to keep moving towards it on a daily basis. So I'll be giving you 3 big, easy to understand things that you can do on a daily basis to keep moving towards that Northern Star. I'll then take a look at how you can set your day up for success, because if you start your day off well, there's every likelihood it's going to end well. So a good start can lead to a good finish. Then we'll take a look at what food groups to combine for maximum weight loss, good health and energy. And as business owners, you know, we need that. We need clarity of thought. We need energy. And then finally, I'll talk about the best exercise combination, duration and frequency that you should be looking at. And please don't worry, there's nothing scary there. So what is my intention for today? Well, the intention of this whole presentation really is to help you put in place your own practical thinking, eating and exercise, action plan so that you can thrive and continue beyond the current situation. So this is about practical things you could do, not theory. So please do make notes, because you'll be able to apply hopefully all of this stuff, maybe not immediately, but certainly over the coming few days, weeks and months, you'll be able to apply it. Who's the webinar for? Well, it's for anyone with an open mind. Obviously, you're coachable and you're willing to take action without all of the facts. And I say that because sometimes we have to act without having all the evidence in front of us. And often I say to my clients, just do it, try it, see what the outcome is. If you get a result, let's just keep on doing it. You don't need to know the ins and outs of absolutely everything to take action. Just imagine if you had to know the workings of a light switch before you turned it on. You'd be walking around in the dark all of the time. So sometimes you have to act without knowing everything. So just who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, I say I've met many of you as site care members previously, but for those that have never met me before, just a little bit about me. So I specialize as a weight loss coach and trainer. I help women and men over 40 typically who are looking to lose anywhere between 2 and 5 stone in weight. How do I do that? I help them by combining their mindset, diet and exercise. And where do I do that from? I do it offline, face-to-face in my private studio in Salisbury. I also work online with clients as well. And here are just a few results of people I've worked with. Kevin, top right as you're looking at the screen, 40 pounds off. Bottom left, Sue, 71 pounds, that's 5 stone, 1 pound. Caroline, 6 stone, 85 pounds. And Adam, 113 pounds in less than 12 months. Quite a remarkable feat, and indeed by all of them. And the information I'll be sharing today is information that I have shared with each of these individuals to help them achieve those sorts of results. Now, I hope you appreciate the glasses. They've been approved by Katie Memory of Memory Opticians, Site Care Director. So if you want to blame anybody for those glasses, blame her. So 3 things that will affect how you receive, respond and act upon the information that I'm about to share, because we're all coming from different start points. Some of you are already fit and active, and the things I'll be saying, you'll go, yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And yeah, I'll give that a go. Others of you may be coming from a background where you haven't been particularly fit or active or really considered your health and well-being. So your way of actually interpreting this information will be different. So these are the 3 things that will affect it. Where you are currently in terms of behavior change, what's your understanding of the learning cycle, and what's your worldview in terms of health and well-being. So let me deal with those 3 things individually before we get into the presentation properly. So first of all, where are you in terms of your behavior change? Well, to change any sort of behavior, we have to go through a cycle, psychological cycle. And the bigger the change, the bigger the challenge, the longer this cycle can take. And when we're talking about health and well-being, it can take several years. So let me explain very quickly what the stages are. You go through what we call pre-contemplation. You may be thinking about your health and well-being, but it's fleeting. It's in and it's out of your mind. And you may not think about it for several weeks, months, or even years. Once you've gone through pre-contemplation, you go into what we call contemplation, and that's where you are thinking more seriously about your health and well-being. Typically, with the clients I work with, if it's weight issues, they're thinking about it upon arising in the morning, throughout the course of the day, and lasting at night, it's on their mind. Then we go from that pre-contemplation to contemplation. We then go into what we call readiness. You're now ready to take some action, and then we move into an action step. So that's the behavior change cycle, and you'll be able to work out in your own minds where you think you are on that cycle. And then we talk about your understanding of the learning cycle. So the learning cycle basically goes from unconscious incompetent, so you don't know you're not good at something, to consciously being and knowing you're incompetent. That's uncomfortable for adults, and often where adults give up on things. We then go into a conscious competent state where we are now conscious and we become competent at something. And then eventually we go all the way back and around down to unconscious competent. And the best example I can give of that would be learning how to drive a car. If you can think back that far, assuming you drive a car, when you first started, you'd have been very much fingers and thumbs, gear stick, clutch, cranking the gears. But now you can get into a car, drive it quite happily, whilst twiddling with the radio and doing various other things that maybe you shouldn't be doing in the car as you're driving along, because you are now unconsciously competent at driving that vehicle. And then the third thing there is, what are your worldviews in terms of your health and well-being? And that's really made up of things like your values, your beliefs, your habits, your environment, your attitude. You know, those 5 things will form like a prism, a set of glasses through which you are viewing the world. And if your value about health and well-being is quite way down the pecking order, then the information I'll be sharing today might be interesting, but you're not going to do a great deal about it. But if your value for health is right at the top of the list, the chances are you'll be sitting up and you'll be paying attention. And the same applies to those other 5 things. So this is what makes up your ability and will determine how you respond and act to the information I'll be sharing today. And there's one other thing which I mentioned when I did the Site Care Roadshow a couple of years ago now. We spoke about team building, and I spoke about the power of vulnerability, and I mentioned and referenced Brené Brown. And she talks very much about being prepared to be vulnerable. And in that preparedness to be vulnerable, it means that you can be helped. Because often people, when they hear the word vulnerable, they think it's weak, it's needy, can't do something, a bit pathetic. But the reality is, unless you're prepared to be a little bit vulnerable and put your hand up and say, I need some help, then really you can't be helped. You've put the walls up and you've got to figure it out all yourself. So being vulnerable is actually a benefit and a useful thing to help you get the help you might be needing, whether it's health and well-being or indeed business, which we're all currently faced with in terms of, certain challenges. So let's get into the presentation proper then, the 5 things I want to speak about. So the first one then is how to set your Northern Star. This is the guiding light to take you where you want to get to. And I use the term Northern Star because back in the day when sailors were, going across the oceans, if they got into choppy waters, one of the ways they could navigate themselves to their destination was to keep in sight that Northern Star. And the same is applicable for us. Now, Northern Star needs to be something which has got some real emotion attached to it, some energy and some real meaning. Now, depending upon where you are, you may not be able to see too far ahead. Some people can see months ahead, years ahead. Other people, depending on where they are in terms of the health and well-being, can barely see to the end of the week. So setting your Northern Star can be broken down into different sections. It might be you're looking at a goal 12 months away, 12 weeks away. It might be tomorrow morning, again, depending upon where you are. But whatever your Northern Star is going to be, you have to be able to see it in your mind's eye. That's critical. You need to be able to verbalize that in your head and out aloud as well. And you need to be able to feel what it would be like to achieve that goal. And that's why I say for some people, going as far as 12 months, it may not quite work because maybe you can't quite see yourself achieving that level of health and well-being. But maybe you can see 30 days ahead where maybe you're a few pounds lighter, you're a bit fitter, you're a bit more energetic. Maybe you can visualize and feel and say that to yourself. And that's the way you set up your Northern Star. So determine what the time frame is going to be, and then make sure you can see it, you can say it, and you can feel it. You need to be able to really internalize that for it to have any impact at all. So that's how to set your Northern Star. Let's talk about now how to keep moving towards your Northern Star. And there are 3 daily attention areas that you can focus on that are going to help you to move towards that on a daily basis. And the 3 pretty big things. How are you going to think today? How are you going to eat today? And how are you going to move today? And those are 3 things that we can all choose to do one way or another. It's entirely up to us. It's entirely our choice. So how are you going to think today? Are you going to think positively about the situation you're in, or are you going to focus on the negativity? Again, it's entirely your choice. And I listened to a really good speaker, I think it was last week, a guy called Steve Head, and he gave an example of the 149 or the 15. It was like a mathematical thing. And he got people to add some figures up. And most people were focused on, there were 4 calculations. 3 were correct and 1 was incorrect. And the one that was incorrect was where people focused. They went, oh, that's incorrect. I think it is a figure that added to 15 or something. And basically what he was saying was, you need to focus on the positive stuff, not to ignore the negative stuff. We need to accept there are things going on which are not great, but we don't want to spend all of our time and attention just focusing on that. So you can decide how you're going to think on a daily basis. And then how are you going to eat on a daily basis? Again, it's a conscious choice that you have. Yes, there's pressure on. Yes, you might feel a bit frustrated at times. And yes, you may feel a little bit, despondent with the whole situation. But again, it is a choice that you can make in terms of how you're going to eat. And exactly the same applies to how you're going to move today. I'm not talking about going out there. If you're not used to exercise, we're not speaking about going out for long runs or cycles or anything like that. It might be something as simple as going for a 5-10 minute walk, get some fresh air, get away from maybe the PC if you find yourself sat there, and a time just to reflect on a few things. So those are 3 things that you can do on a daily basis and you can focus on: how to think, how to eat, how to move, and most importantly, how do you make it enjoyable? Because if you don't make these things enjoyable, then I guarantee you will not do them. So you need to make them enjoyable so that you will wake up and you'll want to do them, because we all want to have a little bit of fun now more than ever. So that's how you keep moving towards your Northern Star, 3 daily attention areas. Let's talk about now how to set up your day for success, because if we can get this right, then moving towards that Northern Star on a daily basis becomes so much easier. And how do we do it? Well, it's pretty straightforward, really. We plan it the day before. Believe you me, I've worked with clients now for over, well, if I include my military career, over 30 years doing this health and fitness stuff. And the people that have got a plan have got more chance of being successful. And there's that old saying, isn't there? Fail to plan, plan to fail. So get a plan and have it planned the day before. If you're going to wait until the actual day and then try and make a plan on the day, it's highly unlikely you're going to follow through, because the level of emotion, thinking and activity that you have to do to create a plan in the thick of it, it's so difficult to do that you probably won't do it. So plan it the day before. Point number 2, start with a quick preview of your day, your goal, your food and your exercise. And you can do this quick preview quite literally before you step foot out of your bed. Before you put your foot down on that carpet, you can be thinking to yourself, right, what's my goal for this week or the next 30 days? Right, I want to drop 10 pounds. Okay, good. How am I eating today? Yeah, great. I've got my meals planned out. Fantastic. What am I going to do in terms of exercise today? I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and walk. That's number 2. And number 3, do the first thing first. So if you decide you're going to get up and go for a walk, a cycle, or whatever it is you're going to do, then do it. If you decide you're going to get up and eat a healthy breakfast, do it. If it's going to be meditation, do it. So whatever it is, you decide and do the first thing first. Please don't put it off. Now, some people like to do a big thing first because they feel as though that gets them off to the best possible start. Everything else after that becomes easy. Other people like to do a small thing first because that gives them that sense of momentum. It's not too difficult and they can then build on it. So it's a personal thing as to what you're going to do first. So that's how to set your day up for success. Let's move on to point number 4, which is how to eat for maximum weight loss, health and energy without starving yourself. Because, you know, even I, and if we're all honest, you know, it's so easy to just go and pick it in the fridge sometimes, you know, because certainly I'm finding myself sat behind the PC a lot more than usual. Very, very easy just to get up and go picking up food. And the big thing is nobody wants to feel as though they're starving. But if you eat well, you never should have to starve and you should be able to be energized, fit and lose the weight. So let's take a look at how this works. So I've got 2 diagrams here, and I don't want to go into sort of nitty gritty. I want to keep it real top level. So the top diagram represents blood sugar levels. So the gray line represents the peaks of your blood sugar. That's where it's particularly high. We don't want that. And the dips represent where it's dropped off. And this thick black line is what we call homeostasis, balanced blood sugar levels. That's what we're trying to achieve, this dotted black line. So you need to be aware that you're never going to be perfectly balanced in terms of your blood sugar levels. You're either going to be slightly up or slightly down. But if you find yourself on these gray lines up here, this sort of blood sugar profile is a type of profile that would lead to eventually type 2 diabetes. When we're down in these dips here, this is where we typically crave all those sweet, sugary types of foods, those simple carbohydrates. So we're trying to get ourselves on this black dotted line. When we're on this black dotted line, we'll find that we can eat healthier foods. They'll be more satiating. They'll keep us feeling, you know, fuller, longer, provide us with all the energy we need and help us to lose weight naturally. So this is the blood sugar profile. This diagram here, again, I want to try and keep this high level so we really get what I'm saying. If you get this second diagram, it can go a long way to helping you in terms of how you create your meals. And I'll give you some examples of meals in a moment as well. But let's just do a little bit of the science so the understanding when I move to the meals is a little bit better. So we've got some key hormones here. We've got leptin, let's get my arrow working, leptin here, insulin, and we've got ghrelin. So let me just talk about how these hormones work in terms of helping us to lose body fat, boost the energies and stay healthy. So in a body that's carrying excess body fat, this large set of fat cells down here, what the body will say is when we change our diets to a healthy diet, what should happen is these fat cells should secrete a hormone called leptin up to the brain, specifically the hypothalamus part of the brain. And it basically says to the brain, it's like a phone call, ring, 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 can we burn some fat? And the message should come back, yes, we can. The red dotted line, it comes back, yes, burn fat, and fat reduces on our bodies. That's what should happen. So leptin goes to the brain, makes a call, brain picks it up, message comes back, burn the fat, and we burn. Everything's fantastic. Unfortunately, what happens with people who have got poor diets, if you take a look at this diagram over here, we've got carbs in green. So what people who have poor diets tend to do is have carbs in the green, which are excessive, and there are made up of simple carbohydrates, very little protein, and not a great deal of fat either. And when you're following that sort of dietary profile, what the body will do is secrete the hormone insulin. Now, when we get sufficient amounts of insulin in our blood sugar, what it would do, or too much insulin, too much sugar, too much insulin in our blood system, that then blocks the leptin from getting to the hypothalamus part of the brain. So exercise as much as you will, if you've got high levels of sugar and insulin in your blood system, then you cannot get the receptor leptin to make that phone call and get the information back to say burn the body fat. That's why I always say to my clients, you just can't out-walk, out-run, out-swim, out-cycle, out-bench press a bad diet. You've got to address your diet. But it kind of gets worse, unfortunately, before it gets better. So if you're on this sort of a diet profile where you're eating simple carbohydrates, lots of sugar, you've got lots of insulin, you're blocking leptin, you then secrete another hormone called ghrelin. And this one goes to the apostat center of the brain. And it basically tells the brain, look, I need to eat more carbohydrates. So you end up eating even more carbs. So the more carbs you eat, the more blood sugar, the more insulin. And it just becomes a vicious cycle where you just can't get out of it. And I say exercise as much as you will. You can't outrun, outcycle, outwalk a bad diet. I'm hoping that makes good sense. If there's anything that I've not made clear there, then please leave it, make a note of the question to the end, and I'll happily answer that question at the end. Let me now give you some examples of how we can eat to get on this black dotted line, which is where we want to be. So the next slide. So I appreciate you probably can't read the smaller text here on this shopping list. But what it says at the top is protein, which is lean protein, fats, which are typically, I recommend nuts and oils, and carbohydrates. Now, this is what often gets my clients raising an eyebrow. I recommend for optimum weight loss in the quickest, safest possible period of time and healthy is to get your carbohydrates from your vegetables, your fruits, as a source of carbohydrate, and to take out of the equation the starchy carbs, the bread, the rice, the pasta. But if you have to eat those things, eat those starchy carbs during the course of the day, not last thing at night. If you eat them during the course of the day up until lunchtime, you at least give your body the opportunity to burn those carbohydrates. But eating those sorts of carbohydrates, those starchy carbs, especially late at night, you're basically boosting your blood sugar levels. The insulin comes in. So it basically means at night when you should be burning fat when you're sleeping, your insulin levels are that high that the way the body should process and work with certain hormones simply won't work. So that's my recommendation. Over here, you've got some examples of meals. You've got a breakfast there, which is made up of scrambled egg. The protein, you've got seeds sprinkled on there with the fat, and you've got tomatoes and mushrooms for the carbohydrates. Over here, I call these mini meals rather than snacks. I like to refer to them as snacks, because as a mini meal. Snacks imply you can just grab something, and typically people will grab just an apple or a banana or something like that. I'll say why that's a good idea in a moment. But this is made up of chicken, your protein, a few cashew nuts on there, not too many, because obviously fats like cashew nuts carry a high volume of calories. And then you've got your carbohydrates, which are coming from your salads, your tomatoes, your green peas, cucumber, that type of thing. And then over here, we've got a beef stir fry, and we've got a nice fish dish. And actually, these are actually all my meals, believe it or not. These are my meals. And just one quick point on the, I think it's worth mentioning in terms of sugar and simple carbohydrates. Now, you may not be aware of how many grams of sugar you should be taking on board. each day. But the recommended guidelines for sugar intake by the World Health Organization is just 30 grams of sugar a day. There's another chap out there, Dr. Robert Lustig, that recommends just 20 grams of sugar a day. And to give you an idea of what that looks like in real food terms, one piece of fruit, average piece of fruit, apple, banana, average size, is about 20 grams of sugar. So that just gives you an idea of how easy it is to actually over-consume on sugar and become addicted to sugar. Because for some people, a breakfast made up of some fruit, a mid-morning apple, maybe a bit of fruit at lunchtime, and maybe a fruit composite or something in the evening sounds quite healthy. That doesn't include maybe the odd chocolate bar. So you can see how you could quite easily be up to 100 grams of sugar in one day and thinking you're eating healthily. So hopefully that's made sense to you. So the combination then at each meal should be protein, lean protein, fats, healthy fats, and carbohydrates from your salads and your vegetables. And I recommend only one piece of fruit a day, so you don't go excessively high on the sugar content. Okay, so just to bring it to a close in terms of the last point then, and that's the best combination of exercises, duration and frequency. And in short there, I've got a client of mine there, Marie, who's doing some sit-ups, squats and press-ups. That was her before she lost 57 pounds. So let me give you some insights into what I think is a good combination for exercise in terms of duration and frequency. So best exercise combination, duration and frequency. Best combination is going to be cardiovascular training. And that can be done in a way that suits you. You know, I have some clients that like to cycle. I have some that like to swim. I have some that like to power walk, some that like to jog, some that like to have a home cross trainer. So it's an individual choice that you're looking at. And then, so that's the cardiovascular, good for the heart and lungs. And then we have the resistance training, and that's the big umbrella title. And under that you have working with your own body weight. So you don't need any equipment at all. I train clients now, and a high percentage of what I take them through requires no equipment at all. So you've got body weight. You can use resistance band, you know, the resistance bands you can buy. A bit more technical maybe, you can use kettlebells, dumbbells, or you could even, if you wanted to, get some machinery equipment in your house to use also. So that's the best combination. It's not just doing the cardio, it's not just doing the weights, it's doing them both together. That will give you the best benefits in terms of training. In terms of duration, if you're a newbie, a beginner, I'll start my clients off with sometimes less than 15 minutes, depending upon their physical capability. But once you're into it, 15 to 30 minutes on a daily basis is ample. I'd certainly recommend doing cardiovascular training every single day. It doesn't have to be high level. I want to say every single day. Some of those days it could just be going out for a walk. Resistance training, working with your body weight, whether it's body weight bands or kettlebells, I recommend 3 times a day to get some appreciable, noticeable differences in your body physique. So how to keep on track. This sadly only would apply to the female participants on this webinar, but I do have a Facebook group page called Salisbury Online Fitness, and if you go on there, if you apply to join, you can get access to this particular journal. I've just pulled out 2 pages here. One's an eating plan, one's an exercise plan, and maybe if there's some guys that want this as well, maybe I can let this, I can supply this and we can get this out to you as well if people aren't interested in it. But you basically got 2 pages there: eating plan page for 7 days, Monday through to Sunday, breakfast, mini meal, lunch, mini meal and dinner, and then you've got your exercise plan as well, Monday through to Sunday, time, exercise, duration, any remarks. And there's a whole load more things within this journal that are designed to help to keep the person using it on track. So that's available if people want that. So a quick summary of what I've covered then. How to set your Northern Star. That's the big star that you are aiming for. That's the big goal. Make it something that is really meaningful, something that you can say, feel, and visualize. Otherwise, it'll have no impact at all. And don't make it too far into the future whereby it loses all of those traits and that emotional connection. How to keep moving towards a Northern Star, those 3 big rocks every single day. how you think, how you eat, how you move. Third thing, how to set yourself up for success. For me, the big takeaway there, well, two of them really, it's plan it the day before and do the first thing first, just get it done. We looked at what food groups to combine for maximum weight loss, health and energy, proteins, fats and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates from your vegetables, your salads, one piece of fruit a day. Combine those 3 macronutrients with every single meal you eat and you will stabilize that blood sugar level. You'll allow all the other hormones to do their magic and you'll see your weight drop. You'll be satiated and you'll also, sorry, been a bit distracted there. You'll also find your energy levels are boosted as well. And then finally, we took a look at the best exercise combination. So it's basically saying cardiovascular training, you can do daily, and resistance training, either body weight bands or kettlebells, 3 times a week. So before we go into questions, just very, very quickly, what else? If you are interested in finding out more about what I can offer you, just before we close, I am offering those three free beginner sessions, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Again, that's at the Salisbury Online Fitness. They're on a Monday, 1 p.m. to 1:15. It's absolute beginner stuff, so it's nothing intensive. So if you are a beginner, you're more than welcome to join that group and do that. I do small group sessions as well. Those are paid for sessions. And I also do a 90-day online Coach Me Slim and Trim program. So those things are available. If you're interested, please feel free to ping me an email on consult@cmstrim.co.uk. So I'm now going to say a big thank you for listening, and I'm going to switch my share off, and I'm going to take any questions that there may be. So I'm going to hand back over to John, Master Panelist. Excellent. I need to keep my
Thank you,
back.
Eric. Yes, we've got first question in, but before I bring your attention to that, Moaz has just mentioned all he needs is a kick up the backside to get him to do it all. So I think I think we all can understand that sentiment. Are you looking at
I'm not seeing your image there, John, by the way.
There we go. I'm back on. Yes, the first question that's come in from Dipesh. He's asking, what do you think of a plant-based diet, which is in the media suggesting it is better than diet including meat? And have you watched Game Changers?
Yeah, I have seen a bit of Game Changers, and there's plenty of evidence out there to support a plant-based diet. The name that springs to mind straight away for me is Novak Djokovic, who doesn't eat meat. And in terms of physical prowess, there are very few people that have graced and moved around a tennis court as well as that guy has. And he attributes a lot of his success in terms of his ability to go for 5-6 hours at a time without seeming to take a dip down to his diet. So yeah, I think there's definitely an argument for that. But equally, there's also an argument for a diet that's rich in meat as well. And there was an interesting show a few years ago now where you had 2 prominent scientists in a boxing ring. Some of you may have seen this, debating the merits of plant-based diet, and it was an Italian. And then there's another chap debating the merits of a meat diet. And one of the rationales that the meat guy was giving was, as we age, become older, our ability to actually absorb protein from things like lentils and the vegetarian options are diminished. Therefore, we should be taking on board a meat source. But again, it's an individual thing, and it can also, it's ethics, and it's how you value and what you think's right and proper in terms of how animals are reared and brought to the table. So it is a personal choice. But in terms of performance, you can argue both sides. Hopefully that's giving you an answer there.
Absolutely. Michelle Barrick's come in and asking, she's going through the menopause at the moment. Should she be thinking differently to this?
Yeah, it's a great question. Menopause, I deal with a lot of women that are going through that, and some fly through it. Others are absolutely stricken by it, and it really does have a massive impact on them. And I've seen it where, quite literally, I was working at a place called Porton Down, which is here in Amesbury, and I was running a 6-week coaching program, and I shared the protein, fats, and carbs concept with them, and spoke about the merits of eating healthy greens, which are more alkalizing for the body. So they reduce inflammation in the body. That's something else that people don't often talk about. The inflammatory response we have from eating the wrong type of food. Anyway, this lady adopted it. And I'm not going to say this would work for you, Michelle, but this was her experience. Literally a week later, she could not believe her change in mood, how satiated she felt, energy levels, and it can be that quick. So, you know, going through the menopause, I guess what you're trying to do is give your body the best nutrients you can give it. And what I'm suggesting in terms of eating, I think would certainly help with menopause. And I think if you're going through that now more than ever, you need to really be thinking about your dietary intake. And maybe do a quick Google on alkalizing foods as well, because that's something which, again, a lot of people don't really understand and don't get, and they continue to eat badly. If they knew that eating certain foods was causing a lot of acidity in the body, which is a lot of damage, I think they might rethink what's on their plate. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Moaz is coming again with asking, with all our busy lives, which he reckons will get worse after lockdown, and that's certainly an understatement, I think. What is the one thing you can suggest to motivate him?
What, right now, to get him going?
Yeah, I think he's alluding to the fact that, you know, once we get back to the new normal, back to the busy lives that all small business owners undertake, you know, what should they be thinking about when they get back to having less time to actually put in place some of the things you're suggesting today?
Yes, it's a great question. And again, I said, you know, I work with a lot of business owners now that have got a limited amount of time. You know, these are not people that can spend hours in the gym. They don't want to spend hours in the gym. They don't need to spend hours in the gym. So I think now is the time where you can step back, take the basic action steps I'm suggesting. It might, you know, I mentioned 15 minutes up to 30 minutes, combining the cardio with the resistance training. So you're trying to do your physical part in a small packet of time, a small window of time, rather than suddenly, because we're on lockdown, and going for hour-long walks and, you know, hour-long cycles or things like that, which are not sustainable when we come out of lockdown. Do the things now that you intend on doing once you come out of lockdown. In terms of exercise, that is. I don't know if that answers the question. Was it just the exercise question you wanted an answer on?
Yeah, I think he's alluding to exercise, but also the way we actually conduct, the way we eat, the way we exercise, the way we just conduct our lives. And I'll probably come in to add to that question, Eric. One thing that's very apparent for people who, you know, running their own businesses are really working 10-hour days, aren't they? Very, very seldom are they able to get home before maybe 7 o'clock at night, maybe even later. And I think it's something to be aware of, that if you're eating too late in the evening, that can be very detrimental to one's weight control, to one's general ability to sleep, one's general well-being. And you got any sort of advice and comments about the optimum time to actually be eating? You might have a perfectly balanced diet, but if you're having that very late in the evening, that can often lead to problems, can't it?
Yeah, so again, another great question. So I would say, if you're the sort of person that you, first things first, if you're coming home late at night, you're going to ask the question, do I need to look at my working pattern? That would, for me, would be the starting point. And I've worked with a lot of business people, and I've had business people quite literally change their working routine. Granted, that is not always possible, so that might not be a starter to begin with, but it's something to think about as you go forwards with your business. But if you can't do that immediately, you can think about your eating window. So if you are going to be eating late at night, 7 p.m., then maybe what you should be doing is starting your eating a bit later in the day, rather than eating from 7 till 7 at night. So you're eating for 12 hours. So you could shift your eating window by a couple of hours. And providing you're eating lean protein, carbohydrates, which are not the simple sugary types of carbohydrates, and you're eating your protein and your fats, your healthy fats, it shouldn't have a massive detrimental effect on your waistline, as long as those calories you're consuming are not excessive. But I would certainly look at moving my eating window to accommodate the fact that you're eating late at night. So you're not, you know, asking your digestive system to work overtime, nor are you consuming an excessive amount of calories because your eating window is so large. So I've looked to move my starting time in terms of eating, if that's what I was faced with.
No, absolutely.
And there's another question there I've just picked up on, John. It was at dinner. Apologies if I'm butchering your name there. But I understand that there are foods that burn fat and some not. Have you heard about this? And can you explain it a bit? Okay, so what we're talking about here then, Adinia, is the thermic effect of food. So, for example, if I was to eat some ice cream, you know, a War's ice cream, because of its composition, my body would take that and just pretty much turn it into fat storage almost immediately. Flip side, if I was to eat a slice of German pumpernickel bread, my body would have to work really hard to metabolize and break that down. And in doing that breakdown, that metabolism of breaking down that bread, I'm actually burning more calories. And you may have heard of some foods being positive and negative calorie-wise. So there are certain foods that take up more calories, like celery, for example. When you eat celery, it takes more energy to burn it than what you actually consume. So yeah, that's called the thermic effect of food, to answer that question.
Isabella's asking, are there optimal times of the day for exercising, Eric?
Another great question. So let me answer this in a maybe two-part way. If you exercise first thing in the morning, there is a school of thought that says you will access your body fats far more readily because you're waking up and you're exercising on a faster blood sugar, basically. So you can access your body fat far quicker than you would if you ate and then exercise. So there's that school of thought, and that's a school of thought which a lot of people do promote. The other school of thought is, I think exercising first thing in the morning points in the right direction. It gets your day off to the best possible start. So there's two arguments for it there. One, it points in the right direction, and two, it can access your fat stores, depending on what sort of training you're doing, far quicker than if you eat and do it later. Because often when you leave your exercise till later on in the evening, and John and you and I were discussing this earlier before we came on the call, end of the day, with all the good intentions, it's so easy to put it off. It really is. So hopefully that answers that question.
No, absolutely. And obviously there's the aspect of endorphins, and the ability to have the endorphins flowing throughout your body, which are derived from exercise, is Absolutely. Going to set you up for having a much more productive day, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
If I could just ask you to maybe comment briefly on hydration. We all know that hydration is a key aspect of health and well-being. And also when you're exercising, what would be your comments on that, Eric?
Yeah, okay, good question. So hydration, first of all, let's work out, do we know how to test for hydration? And there are a couple of ways of testing. One which I hear people say is pinch your skin. Well, depending on how old you are, your skin might have that elasticity in it. The easiest way to test for hydration, I think, is check your urine. It should be clear, and there should be copious amounts of it. Typical fluid intake is going to be anywhere between 1.5 litres to 2 litres a day, and that will depend upon your size. Also, it will depend upon the time of the year and your activity level. So if we're talking about midsummer, that figure could quite easily increase to 2.5 to 3 litres a day. And if you're playing sport and you're doing physical activity, it can go up again by another 1.5 litres, 2 litres. But on average, between 1.5 litres and 2 litres a day of water or cordials with a light amount of cordial in there. We're not talking about tea and coffee because those are diuretics and they cause you to pass out fluid. So it is, herbal teas are good. You know, herbal teas would be good. But yeah, 1.5 litres to 2 litres a day.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, we're all very conditioned to coffee and tea throughout the day. And I think a lot of independent opticians are probably looking to offer their patients water as a preference to tea and coffee as they're coming into their practices. It's natural just to offer coffee rather than water.
I would just caveat a little bit that water intake. If I was running a practice, I mean, I know a few of the practices. Yes, I think you could offer both. I think you could offer both water and coffee. Would I just offer water in my practice? I'm not sure I'd do that. I think I'd offer both and let people make the decision themselves.
That's right. Give choice. Yeah. No more questions as I see at the moment, but certainly I think what everybody is hopingly doing at the moment is to be taking the extra time that they might have available to try to get into a better regime, an exercise regime, a dietary regime. And it's all about trying to maintain that, as Moaz was saying, when we get back into a busy life. But I think everybody understands that once we come out of this lockdown, it's not going to be about returning to the normal. It's going to be about adapting to the new. Hopefully people will use that as an opportunity to maybe change just the way they conduct their lives and conduct their own health and well-being, because opticians are healthcare professionals and they're focused on ensuring everybody's eye care and eye health. But how much are we spending on our own? So if, we just had a question, is that a question or a statement in from Moaz saying, it is good to take smaller amounts of water for more frequently than in all in one go. I think the question there is it good to take smaller amounts of water frequently rather than all in one go?
Yeah, simple answer is yes. I mean, it's just a great way to, and not only is it a good idea, often we can confuse hunger with thirst. So if you are drinking regularly throughout the course of the day, you're less likely to want to eat because you are staying hydrated. And
it's always a good tip to, when you get into your place of work or into the practice, for the people that are listening today, it's fill that glass of water up, or fill that water bottle up and have that available to you, because often the part of the challenge is actually getting up physically to go and get that water and have that drink, whereas if it's on hand, you're more likely to take those sips.
Well, you know, one of the tips I give to my clients when it comes to drinking water, because not all of them like to drink water. Some people find it boring drinking water. And I must admit, I tend to put effervescent vitamin C tablets in my water. So I get the vitamin C along with drinking the water. But I recommend that they should buy themselves quite an expensive either jug if it's at work, or some sort of water carrying device. So they actually feel like, oh yeah, this is quite nice. It's a nice item from which to drink, rather than just drinking out of the standard off-the-shelf plastic bottles. Get something that makes it a little bit more of an occasion, rather than just say drinking out of a plastic bottle.
Yes, make it more of an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Moaz has just come in and commented quite rightly, as you said, we are all healthcare professionals. That's why we are doctors of optometry. Yes, no, absolutely so.
Now, just remind me, is Moaz the chap that I took the hat off at one of the events?
That's Moaz. Absolutely.
Hi Moaz, how are you doing? Good,
yes,
good to have you on here. Yeah.
Yes, recognise.
If I'd have known you coming on, I'd have got myself a hat.
Yes, and always gives us the pleasure of his musical skills at our conference. So yes, wonderful gentleman, Moaz. Yeah. Well, if anybody has any last-minute questions, we're now 10 to 1, and very conscious that Moaz is saying next time he'll give you his hat, Eric.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It was very good of you. I did take it off you at that event, didn't I?
Well, I would like to say a very big thank you to Eric for everything you shared with us today. It's been very, very enlightening, and
my pleasure.
Lovely to hear somebody talk about a subject other than COVID-19, other than the challenges and stresses everybody's going through during the current process of lockdown. And what I hope is that we can maybe do a few other webinars over the next weeks to months with you, Eric, because it's so important that we're thinking about our own health and well-being as much as everybody else that we deal with during our working day. We're never going to have a time like this again, well, probably for a long, long time. So it's how, as you say, it's how we just take advantage of that. If anybody has any questions going forward, please contact Eric directly or contact me, and I'll pass them on to Eric. We have recorded the webinar, so if you came in late, we'll have it on our website, hopefully by tomorrow, and you can listen to it again. But I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's taken the time this afternoon to join us. I hope you all have a really productive afternoon, and thank you so much to Eric for his time and his sharing his considerable experience and knowledge with us. I'd just like to end off by saying, please stay well, everybody, and I look forward to being able to see you all again in person, not too long, I hope. And anybody who's available and free tomorrow at 12 noon, we've got our weekly question time, and that's on the subject of winning teams. So if you'd like to, again, take some time to listen to our expert panel of speakers talking about their thoughts on how to develop, how to create, how to work with a winning team. So thank you very much, everybody. Have an excellent rest of the day. Thank you, Eric, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Stay safe, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.